were fantastic musicians. But, sometimes you do something and it just doesn't take off, and it didn't take off. So after a couple of years, we said, you know what? This is going nowhere. Let's just stop it, put ourselves out of this misery and get on with other things, which we did.
But it's good to have the experience. Then a couple of years later, you guys released with the brilliant album Avalon, which turned the life upside down again for you guys. You had been in wave Roxy music, and all of a sudden, boom, you went to heaven again, so to speak.
Well, actually, we did Avalon first. It was after Avalon that we did the Explorers. Yeah. But towards the end of the 80s, then I decided to get back to my roots and start looking at South America again.
Yeah.
And then I met some Cuban musicians in Italy, and they invited me to Cuba. And I went back for the first time since the revolution. I toured there with them, Grupo Moncada, they were called. They were huge in Cuba. We paid enormous audiences, and not because of me, but because of them. And then I started producing rock en español, because I suddenly discovered, I started my own label, and then I discovered at Medium I met a lot of Spanish record people and who owned record companies, and I discovered that I was pretty much one of the only producers who could produce with the tradition of British production stuff, with George Martin influenced, and who could speak Spanish and could understand Spanish lyrics. So I became, by default, the number one producer of rock en español. So I did Fito Páez, I did Héroes del Silencio, I did Bunbury, I did Draco, Robbie Rosa, I did Aterciopelados, I did Paralamas, I did Mónica Naranjo. I was doing hundreds of these amazingly talented musicians, but singing in Spanish.
Yeah.
And bringing my experience of all those Roxy albums and my solo albums to the industry of Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico even. I did a band there. Germany, France, international. I just went bonkers,
Yeah, well, when you figured out, man, not only speak Spanish, but with all the experience that I have with Roxy music, I can help this guy become a producer, show them the way we do it in England, and
that's it.
Excellent. You figured out to earn money and be the in between guys, between the Latin culture, the American culture, and be the producer as well of those albums.
Yeah, and really, I enjoyed that so much because the ambiente of recording, the ambience of recording with those musicians was just so different to working with European musicians or American musicians. They were just so much fun. And it took me back to my childhood growing up in Cuba and Venezuela and Colombia, and it just felt like brothers, and we laughed so much. We had so much fun doing all that.
No, absolutely. Before I forget, I wanted to mention, of course, we talk about, the Avalon record, which is a masterpiece, and some of those were recently released as 100-gram.
Yes, new vinyl.
After in Abbey Road Studios in London. This is another masterpiece as well. So, yeah, very, very, very good. So then while you were doing that, you end up making a beautiful album. I really like the one with John Wetton, which is, I think, it's this guy, Wetton Manzanera.
Yes, with John, dear John.
Yeah, it's 87. Well, this is a masterpiece as well, Phil.
Thank you. John was a very good friend of mine. Of course, he was briefly in Roxy after King Crimson.
Yeah.
He joined Roxy for a little bit, but then he was really more into heavy metal, and then then he got his own band, Asia, and all that. But we stayed friends right up until he died, and he played on most of my solo albums, actually, John, and sang on a few of them. And he was a dear, dear friend. And, that album, we had such a good time recording it, and we thought it was going to do well. But he had problems with the record company in America, and they decided that it wasn't going to do well. And so they killed it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I think he went on TV in America and said some bad things about David Geffen. And unfortunately, John was drinking a lot at that time, so I hate to think what he said. But, it was one of those things where this guy will never work again in the music business. But having said that, this was after selling millions of albums with Asia in America, So, there's always reasons why these things happen. But that's rock and roll,
Sometimes you need to keep your mouth shut and then, look sideways and do
yeah.
It has pros and cons. So you have, like you mentioned, you have collaborated with too many Latin artists, like some in Argentina, right? Samalea, Richard Coleman, and
yes, and
go ahead.
Yeah, I did a wonderful concert in Buenos Aires at the CCK with, and I had guests, and Richard. Wow, yeah, he sang Amazona, the Roxy song, and we had just so many. Yes, Amalea. I had the best, like top musicians playing with me, and I brought over as well Lucas Polo and a Portuguese lady singer, and it was just a joy. And luckily, they filmed it and they recorded it, and it was a joy to hear them play some of the 801 music, and they were just incredible musicians, So we had a great time, and so actually I forgot the other person I worked with was a guy from Os Mutantes, Sergio Diaz. We did an album together. That was my other Brazilian person apart from Paralamas. So part of my philosophy why I became a musician was to meet people and to have musical conversations and a good time with people from different countries, So I feel that I've ticked a lot of those boxes, and my last 2 years when I was working with Tim Finn as a singer, he was in Auckland and I was locked down here in England. We managed to do 2 albums.
Right, yeah.
So and we go back to 1975, when I produced their first album, Split Ends, they were called, and then they became Crowded House.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very well done. So it's good that you were successful. You play a lot of great band, but you never forgot your roots, and you went back to Argentina, Mexico, and Cuba to help out some bands and have fun, make a little bit of money. But you did it because you love other musicians that I interview, or perhaps the majority, they don't care about that. They only worry about why I want to go to Latin America. It's not going to impact my life, make an impact on my life, not going to get any money, crazy countries, and dangerous. Why bother? But in your case, you did. So it's what's your
well, I feel when I'm back in South America, I feel at home. It doesn't matter if it's, my brother's Argentinian.
Yeah.
Whether it's Argentina or whether it's in the northern countries, Colombia, Venezuela, Oh my God! Even when I went to Chile, I went with Gilmour. We went, and I said to him, you're going to be amazed when you go to South. He hadn't been to play, really. Although we did do something in Colombia in '92 or something. It was a disaster. But I said, when you see the audiences in Argentina, in Brazil, in Chile, you're going to go
crazy.
Be amazed how they love your music and the enthusiasm of it. And it's not, a bunch of old people. They're young people who really like your music.
That's right. People in their 60s, they bring the kids, they're maybe the son has 35, 40, which in turn bring his own kids, 15, 16. So, for example, right, when the last time I go to London like 3 times a year. So I went to London to see to see Eric Clapton at the Royal Albert Hall back in April, May last year.
Yeah.
And I flew to London again to see the last 3 shows of Genesis at the O2. And you see 3 different generations, people in the 60s, 40s, and the 20s. The old music still resonates with a lot of, so to speak, the old music, classic rock.
Yeah.
With a lot of people there. It's nowadays here in United, in Roxy Music, when I was there, saw you 3 times, there are a lot of young kids, 15, 16, 17, that, the parents, showing, hey, this is what I used to listen when I was your age, buy vinyl, and so this is amazing. And it's
well, yeah. I mean, it's the power of music. That's why it's so valuable and so important. That's why I'm concerned about young bands being able to earn money to keep doing music, for everybody, because the joy it's brought me in my whole life, listening to other music, and still does when I listen. And I love I listen to Spotify as well. I just want them to pay the musicians more. I love the idea of Spotify. It's fantastic. I can listen to all sorts of stuff, but I just want them to pay more. Now they've made huge profits. It's about time, not necessarily Spotify, but the actual record companies.
To pay what is accurate. And unfortunately, go ahead.
Well, no, just something that's fair. Right. It doesn't have to be fair for everybody. They've made so much money, and they're continuing. Every quarter you read about huge profits they're making.
Mm. Yeah.
Anyway, we mustn't bore everybody with that.
We gotta be and nowadays many artists end up selling their rights. I think Genesis, Phil Collins, Tony Banks, and Mike Rutherford, they're selling the rights for, I don't know, to a group for 300 million, and then many other groups, they say, Stevie Nicks, the same.
Every day.
100 million, whatever, I don't know which company is that, but they sell the right.
Yes, I mean,
with the music. So.
I know. I read today that the Doors had sold their, and yes,
yeah.
Wow. And so, I think what's happening is that a lot of musicians my age are getting to the point where maybe sometime in the next 10 years, they're going to fall off this mortal coil. And they're thinking about their families and how it's, and so they're thinking, well, perhaps we better get some money now, and then my children, my grandchildren, and their children will, be able to get some money and monetize. So I can understand why people do that. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your collaboration with David Gilmour. Obviously, you play in his last 2 solo albums. You collaborated with him on the album On an Island. Feel free to whatever you want to talk about David and Gilmour and your friendship with him, and the money that you own from the 20% that you own him. After giving you, some pep talk or some lesson when you were, I don't know, 17, 18. We need to interview David and ask him that question.
Well, he is a good friend. Obviously, I feel like he's part of my family, almost like a brother,
Yeah.
And he's very humorous and fantastic player and very talented. I love his voice and I love his musicality, and it's been a joy sharing. Obviously he could just produce everything himself, but it'd just be too boring, and people need somebody just to get a second opinion from, and that's really what I was doing for like 10 years, and who knows, I might still continue to do that. I don't know, but it's just part of my life, and we have connections, and I met him through my brother.
Yeah.
And we all have memories of things that we did together. And I once we went to Colombia and actually played with with Roger Daltrey.
Yeah.
And David, and it was a little bit of a disaster because we thought we were going for an environmental charity gig in Cali, and I don't know what we're thinking of. It was the time of Pablo Escobar and everything, and I don't know how we ended up there, but when the day we arrived, they said, "Don't go to the concert. It's a money laundering exercise for the cartel." And we went, "What?" So we did do the concert, but there was hardly anyone there, just a bunch of Guardia Civil con escopetas. It's actually, there's some of it on YouTube, but it was, what were we thinking of? We were just complete numpties. We flew all the way there with all the musicians. We rehearsed, we played. It was the first time any Who songs or Pink Floyd songs were ever played in South America.
Cool. Yeah.
In fact, there's a famous Colombian writer who's done a very funny short story about that whole episode. But that's just another adventure, that I went on with David. And my one of my cousins was the capitan of the plane that flew us from Bogota to Cali as well. So it was a bit of a family affair. But wow. Luckily, we went back when we toured with David on the Rattle That Lock tour in Brazil and Argentina and Chile. It was a fantastic experience, It was just joyful. But yeah, so it's like me and Claire and him and Polly were almost like a family. During those 10 years, and the kids were growing up, and of course we had Crosby and Nash came and sang with us quite a few times. So that was quite sad this last week for Crosby to die, and so like that. And Jeff Beck too. I only got to know Jeff because of him coming around to see David. When I was there sometimes.
Wow. Yeah.
But I mean, I've been listening and watching quite a few of his YouTube videos recently, and what an amazing. He's the only guitar player that Hendrix wanted to see when he came to London for the first time.
Really?
So I've got to check out Jeff Beck.
Wow. Yeah. I interview Steve Hackett last week, and the first 10 minutes he talked about, I think it was the day after Jeff Beck passing.
Yeah, Jeff.
He talked about 10 minutes about Jeff Beck, and coming from Steve Hackett, say there is great people here, but there is Jeff up here.
There's Jeff. Oh yeah.
We all look up.
Yes, and speaking about Steve Hackett, well, of course, we've done this single for Ukraine,
That's
A
right.
Path to Freedom, and when Dimitri rang me, he said, that Steve had said he was going to do it. I said, yeah, totally. I put me down. So, and Adam Holzman, and we'll do whatever we can. So I put it out on my label, and we've helped to, to put up the donate sign and everything. Let's see. I know that I can see the figures, and it's maybe on Spotify, it's been watched about 7,000 times since last Thursday. So I'm pleased. We're doing what we can.
That's right.
But I mean, it's great to be on a record with Steve. Yeah, I've never been on a record with Steve.
Oh, well, you're humble, man. You have played with the best of the best. So, do you think down the road you will be touring with David Gilmour again? Will Roxy Music get together for 50 now plus 52 years reunion, or hard to tell?
I don't think Roger and David will ever play together again. But who knows? But I really don't think so. I think they've gone too far away from each other. And with Roxy, we did sort of say that would be our last gigs. So I don't, when we finished at the O2 in September, it was a fantastic gig, our best one, I think, almost of the whole tour. It was sold out. It was a lovely experience. And I said to Brian, if that's it, then I'm happy. That was a great way to finish it. I think, I'm hoping that we'll put out a live album from those 16 gigs, because I think it'll be different to all the other times we played. It's a much different show. And even though the same songs, our interpretation, and because of what we can do in our 70s, created a different kind of Roxy. I mean, so I'll be interested to hear it when we come to mix it. Yeah.
What's your motivation, Phil, to keep on going? Obviously, you have played with the best of the best. You have done well financially. What's the motivation? In the morning, you wake up, you get your coffee, and you check your email or YouTube or Spotify. Music come to your world again, and people ping, can you work with me in this track, on that track? What? It's for life. I mean, can you help it, or
Well, I've always got music on the go. Yeah. So last year I started this instrumental album with Andy, and now we've got to finish it now.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do music that's almost like abstract and not song. I'd done 2 albums with Tim Finn of songs, played all the Roxy stuff, wanted to do something quite different with Andy as well, show a different side to our musicality. So that so I've always got stuff to work on, and because I love music and I listen to music all the time, and so I'm just involved in music for my health, for health reasons. I have to keep doing music. I love swimming, so I do swimming and I do music. And obviously I have a big family, and there's grandchildren now. There's 5 so far, and there's going to be a load more. And, so there's a lot going on, but music is the thing that helps the most.
Any of your kids are musicians or all?
No, no, none of them are musicians. I mean, Charlie is a film director and does documentaries. I mean, by the age of 15, he could play everything I could play. And I was pleased that he didn't try and continue as a musician. I could see that he had a good visual eye. Yeah. And so I encouraged him to go into film. And he can combine that with his knowledge of music. And my eldest daughter runs Formula One racing, the business side of that. And the other daughter, it lives in New York, works for Google.
Yeah.
And then my stepchildren work for offshore wind in Taiwan. Another one works for marketing. Well, there's just everything, charity work. So it's busy.
Yeah.
It's a busy, full life.
Yeah, music, like you mentioned, has given me so much satisfaction, Phil. As I mentioned before, I don't play an instrument. I don't know how to read music, but I have a huge music collection. I listen 2 hours a day, every day from the last 50 years. It's obviously came from my dad, and it's a beautiful thing. And then during the pandemic, I opened one radio. I sent the link to friends. They like it. A couple companies asked me to put radios together because they like the type of music that I like to listen to. I did that, and then I said, man, we are doing COVID, the pandemic. People are not touring. Everybody must be at home, and I began calling people. And Steve Hackey was my first interview 2 years ago, and people have been, very, very nice. I have interviewed a lot of jazz people, a lot of electronic musician people, a lot of people from Germany that play with Tangerine Dream. I have a lot of soundtracks. So I interview a lot of people that do create music for films and of course all the classic rock stuff. And it's great. I'm very happy that I never thought that I would be able to do this stuff. And for me, in many ways, even if let's say that my YouTube channel or the radio start generating money, I will donate every single penny for charities or hope.
Oh, well, that's very good.
I have done well in my life. I'm a computer scientist, and I have done well, so I'm not doing it for the money. I will donate every money. Why I'm doing that is because I want to create like a library, like a musical archive of interviews. So down the road, you can look back, man, who were the Genesis guy? Who were the Pink Floyd guy? Who was, the Jeff Beck? Unfortunately, I never met the guy. And so for the future generation, believe it or not, I'm not doing this for me. I don't know, like good example would be Robert Fripp, right? Robert Fripp doesn't give interviews at all, and he come across a little bit, difficult person. But if I end up interviewing him, 20,000 people will see the interview, another side of him. And that would make me very happy. That's my motivation, Phil. It's
but yeah, actually, I want to see the documentary. I don't know how you can't see it very easily here, but everyone says that's fun. And I know Bill Bruford quite well, so he was interviewed for it. So I can't wait to see the documentary. Obviously, because we had the same management in 1972 to 82 as Crimson. I know them and knew them all. Well, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the documentary. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's very good, very fantastic.
Yeah.
I went to so Robert Fripp came to United States back in November, December to give lectures. He was with his right-hand man, and which I interviewed as well, and they talk about the films also. But it was very interesting, I don't know, as I say, I don't know Robert Fripp well. Sometimes he come across like an arrogant person. I don't know them in real life, but he was very nice, answering questions. Yeah. The documentary is excellent. Of course, I love King Crimson and a lot of other music. So it's it's great.
Good. Well, Claudio,
go ahead.
I do need to. I need to be going now, but if in the future you want to do another one with more detail, pick out certain aspects, then
we can do part 2 in the future when you have time, and I will. Yeah. And I will ping you when I'm in London, and then we get to definitely want to visit your studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Come and have a cup of tea.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil.